I stood there in the cold lawyer's office, tears building in my eyes. His mother looked straight at me, her lips curved into a proud smile. She slid the paper across the table. "Sign it," she said. "Just a little protection for my son." I looked at her. She didn't see me as a person. She saw me as a problem. Just a black girl trying to marry into her rich, powerful family. A gold digger. That's what she thought I was. I looked at him, my fiancé, the man I loved. He looked away. He said nothing. My hands were shaking as I held the pen. I signed the prenup. And in that moment, something inside me broke. But that wasn't the end. 3 months later, I found out I was worth $2 billion, more than their whole family, and none of them saw it coming. Let me take you back. My name is Amina. I grew up in a small town. Life wasn't easy, but we had each other, me and my mom. My dad? He was never around. He left when I was young. All I had was an old picture and a few memories. I went to school, worked hard, paid my way through college, got a good job. That's where I met Ethan. Tall, smart, sweet smile. We clicked right away. He said I made him feel alive. I said he made me feel seen. We fell in love. But the moment I met his family, everything changed. They smiled at me. Yes, but it was the kind of smile that hides something. A fake smile. Cold. His mom didn't waste time. "Do you work?" she asked, her voice tight. "Yes," I said. "I'm a project manager in tech." She nodded, but her eyes said something else. "You're not good enough." Ethan's family was rich. Very rich. Old money, fancy parties, private planes. I didn't care about any of that. I just loved Ethan. But his mother? She didn't believe that. When Ethan proposed, she pulled him aside. I saw her whispering to him. Her eyes locked on me the whole time. Days later, Ethan came to me. He looked nervous. "My mom wants us to sign a prenup," he said. I was quiet. "A prenup?" I asked. "Why?" He shrugged. "Just to be safe." "Safe from what?" I whispered. He didn't answer. It hurt. But I said yes. I didn't want to lose him. I thought love was enough, so I signed, not knowing my whole life was about to change yet. 3 weeks after the wedding, Ethan's mother invited us over for dinner. I wasn't surprised. She liked to pretend we were one big, happy family. She smiled at me as I walked in, but I could feel it. The judgment behind her eyes, the way she scanned my outfit, my nails, my shoes, looking for something to criticize. "You're glowing," she said with a smile. "Marriage must be treating you well." I nodded politely, but inside I felt small. Later that night, I overheard her on the phone. She signed it. I told you she would. She thinks love is enough? Poor girl." My chest tightened. I went outside and took a deep breath. I didn't cry. Not this time. I just stared up at the sky and told myself, one day, they will see me. Then the letter came. It was a thick white envelope, sealed with a stamp I didn't recognize. It came from New York. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from a law firm. The name caught my attention. Mr. Hassan al-Hakim's estate. My hands began to tremble. It was about my father, the man I barely remembered, the man who left. According to the letter, he had passed away. But that wasn't all. He had left me something. Something massive. They were asking me to come to the city, to meet with his lawyer. I was confused, nervous. I didn't even know this man, but something inside me told me to go. So I booked a flight. I didn't tell Ethan. I just said I had to visit an old family friend. When I landed in New York, the lawyer's office was in a tall glass building. Everything looked expensive. They greeted me like I was royalty. "Miss Al-Hakim, we've been waiting for you." I sat down, still in shock. Then the lawyer handed me a document. "You are the only living heir of Mr. Hassan al-Hakim," he said. "He left you everything. Your inheritance is valued at $2 billion. I stared at him. I couldn't speak. My whole body went numb. $2 billion? Me? The same girl they thought was after their money? I wasn't just not poor. I was richer than all of them. And they had no idea. I flew back home in silence. My mind was racing. I kept looking at the papers in my bag. It didn't feel real. When I walked into our apartment, Ethan was on the couch. "How was the trip?" he asked. "Fine." I said I wasn't ready to tell him yet. I needed time. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I thought about all the moments his mother made me feel small. The looks, the comments, the prenup. I remembered the way Ethan didn't defend me. And now, I was a billionaire. Not because I married into money, but because I was born into it. And they didn't even know. The next morning, I made a decision. I called the lawyer. "Can we keep this private for now?" I asked. He agreed. Everything was under my name. quiet, safe. I went about life as usual, but something inside me had changed. I no longer felt the need to prove anything. Weeks passed, and then came the party. Ethan's parents were hosting a big fundraiser. They asked us to come. I wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy, but when I walked in, people stared. They didn't know why, but I did. Confidence looks good. Ethan's mom came over, smiling too much. Amina, darling, lovely to see you. I nodded. She leaned in. You've been very quiet lately. Is everything all right? I smiled back. Everything's perfect. Then it happened. A guest walked up to me. He was older, wearing a sharp suit. Miss Al Hakim, he said warmly. I didn't expect to see you here. Ethan's mom blinked. I'm sorry. Who? The man laughed. Amina Al Hakim, Hassan's daughter. You haven't heard? Her smile froze. What do you mean? She asked slowly. He looked confused. She's the sole heir of the Al Hakim estate. Didn't you know? Worth billions. She's all over the finance news. Silence. You could hear glasses clinking in the distance. Ethan turned to me. Amina, what is he talking about? I stood still. Then I said it. My father died. He left me everything. His mother's face turned pale. You're lying, she said, voice shaking. No, I replied. But even if I were, you made me sign a prenup. So you're safe, remember? She opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time, she had nothing to say, and it felt good. We left the party early. Ethan was quiet the whole ride home. I could feel the tension in the car. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. When we got inside, he finally spoke. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at him, calm. You didn't ask, I said. He shook his head. That's not fair. We're married. You should have told me. I looked down, then back at him. Did you tell me your mom would make me sign a prenup before we got engaged? He froze. I didn't know she'd... Yes, you did, I said softly. You knew what kind of woman she was, and you stayed silent. He sat down, rubbed his face. So what now? He asked. I shrugged. I don't know. Nothing's changed, right? You married me for love? Not money? Isn't that what you told me? He didn't answer. Days passed. The story hit the internet, blogs, finance sites, even social media. People started recognizing my name. I got emails, calls, business offers, invitations to events. But I didn't care about that. I cared about the way Ethan was changing. He started acting weird, quiet, distant. He wasn't the same man I fell in love with. One evening, I found him in the study, his laptop open. He quickly closed it when I walked in. What are you doing? I asked. Nothing, he said too quickly. I didn't push. But that night, when he fell asleep, I checked the browser history, search after search. How to challenge a prenup. Prenup invalid if hidden assets. Divorce laws with wealthy spouse. My heart sank. He was planning something. Not love, not trust, just money, just like his mother. The next morning, I packed a bag. He woke up and saw me by the door. Amina, what are you doing? I looked him in the eyes. I loved you before I knew who I was, before I knew what I had. But you loved me as long as you thought you were above me. He stepped forward. It's not like that. It is, I said. I would have stayed if you had nothing, but you're leaving because I have something. He didn't stop me. He just stood there. I walked away, and I didn't look back. I moved into a quiet place on the edge of the city. No noise, no pressure, just peace. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. I spent my mornings by the window, sipping tea and watching the sunrise. I spent my afternoons talking to my lawyer, setting up charities, helping girls like me, girls who were underestimated. And at night, I wrote in my journal. Not about pain, but about growth, about power. Real power. Not the kind you show off, the kind that lives in silence. The media kept talking. Some said I fooled everyone. Others said I was smart. But I didn't care what they said. I cared about what I knew. I knew I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. One day, I got an invitation in the mail. It was from Ethan's mother, a letter, written in her perfect handwriting. I apologize, it said. I judged you too quickly. I hope we can talk. I folded the letter and placed it on my shelf. I never replied. Some people don't deserve a second chance at your peace. A few months later, I stood on a stage in front of hundreds of young women. I was giving a speech at a conference I started, one that supported women in tech and leadership. I told them my story. Not the story of a prenup, not the story of a rich father, but the story of how I found myself. How I learned to stop shrinking. How I learned that your worth doesn't come from who loves you or who doesn't. It comes from who you are when no one's watching. The audience clapped. Some cried. One girl came up to me after. She looked just like I did years ago. Thank you, she whispered. You made me believe I can be more. I hugged her, and in that moment I knew this was my real inheritance. Not the money, but the power to change lives. Starting with mine. Months passed, and I hardly thought about Ethan anymore. I was busy building something real, something that mattered. But one evening, as I stepped out of my car, I saw him, standing by the sidewalk, waiting. His hair was a little longer, his eyes tired. Amina, he said softly, can we talk? I didn't answer. He followed me a few steps. I messed up. I know. I let them get in my head. My mom, the money, it all changed me. I didn't mean to hurt you. I turned around slowly. You didn't just hurt me, I said. You made me feel small. You watched as they treated me like nothing, and you said nothing. He looked down. I was scared, he said. I didn't think I deserved you. He was crying now. I miss you. Every single day. I don't care about the money. I just want you back. I looked at him for a long time, and for a second I remembered the good times, the walks, the laughter, the quiet moments, but I also remembered the silence when I needed his voice. The silence when I needed his love to be loud. You lost me, I said gently. Not because of money, but because when it mattered, you chose fear over love. He nodded, tears falling freely. I hope you find healing, I said, but I've already found mine. I walked past him, and this time I didn't feel pain. I felt peace. That night, I sat on my balcony, looking at the stars. So much had changed. But one thing was clear. I never needed their approval. I never needed their name. Because I already had my own. A name that stood strong, with or without a man, with or without a ring. And the next time I fall in love, if I ever do, it will be with someone who sees my power, not as a threat, but as a gift. The weeks rolled by, and peace became my closest friend. I found joy in the smallest things: morning walks, fresh flowers, the sound of rain. One afternoon, I received an email from a global women's leadership summit. They wanted me to be their keynote speaker. I smiled. Just 2 years ago, I was someone's +1 at events like that. Now I was the main name on the banner. I said yes. On the day of the event, the hall was packed. Young women, leaders, dreamers, all watching as I stepped on stage. I took a deep breath and looked out at them. I was once told to sign a paper that said I brought nothing to the table, I began. But they didn't know I was the table. The crowd gasped. I continued. They thought I was lucky to be in the room. But the truth is, I was always the room. I just didn't know it yet. I shared how I was judged for where I came from, how love turned cold, how silence cut deeper than words, and then I told them how I found my voice. Not when I got rich, but when I stopped begging to be seen. After the speech, I met so many women with stories like mine, women who were doubted, silenced, ignored, and now they were rising. One girl came up to me and said, I was afraid to start my company, but after hearing you, I believe I can. I looked her in the eyes and said, you already can. You just have to stop waiting for someone to tell you so. Later that evening, as I sat alone backstage, I felt a warm tear slip down my cheek. Not from sadness, but from pride. I had been through pain, through shame, through silence, but I had turned all of it into power, and now I was helping others do the same. This was what my father left me. Not just money, but a story strong enough to light fires in others, and I would never let that flame go out. A few days after the summit, a letter arrived at my office. A handwritten note in a simple envelope. No stamp, no name. I opened it slowly. Inside it read, I see you now. I'm sorry I didn't before. That was all. No signature. But I knew who it was from. His mother. For a second, I didn't know how to feel. Anger, relief, but I felt nothing. Because her words, late as they were, no longer held power over me. I had already moved on. I had already healed. The next morning, I stood in front of a mirror. No makeup, no fancy clothes, just me. I stared at the woman I had become. Not broken, not small, not afraid, but strong, rooted, whole. And I whispered to myself, you didn't just survive, you rose. Later that day, I got a call from a school in my hometown. They wanted me to speak to young girls about dreams and dignity. I said yes without thinking. When I arrived, the students clapped and cheered, but one little girl sat quietly in the front row. She had brown skin, braids, and eyes that reminded me of myself. After the talk, she came up to me. My uncle says girls shouldn't run businesses, she said. But I want to. I knelt to her level. You can, I said. And one day you will. Just promise me something. What? She asked. Don't let anyone hand you a pen to write yourself out of your own story. She smiled. And in that moment, I knew my journey wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every girl who had ever been told she was too little, too poor, too black, too bold. This was for them. And I would keep. Years later, I sat in my own office, one I built from the ground up. There were no pictures of Ethan, no reminders of what I'd lost, only what I had gained. A company that empowered women, a foundation that gave scholarships to girls from broken homes, a life that meant something. People still asked about the prenup story. They were shocked when I told them I was grateful for it. Why? They asked. Because that one signature revealed the truth. Not about them, but about me. It showed me who I was when everything I thought I needed was stripped away. It showed me that I didn't need anyone's last name to be valuable. My name was enough. My story was enough. And my future? It was already mine. So to every woman who's ever been doubted, dismissed, or told she doesn't belong, don't shrink. Don't stay silent. Stand tall. Because one day, the very people who overlooked you will wish they had seen you when it mattered. And by then, you'll be too far ahead to hear them.